Welcome. My name is Diana Catherine Plopa, and I am here with you again. Season 2 of Pages Promotions Indie Reads TV. We're having a blast. We're just laughing so much today. You're going to have a good time. In the studio with me today is this awesome lady. Her name is Angie Kidd, and we are here to talk about her new book. Just came out this past summer called The Healing Star. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. This is so fun. I love discovering new authors, people I've never read before, people I haven't heard of. And you're a brand new indie author, so this makes it even better. This is your debut.
Yes.
First of all, let's talk about the book. Tell me a little bit, give me a little bit of the synopsis of the book.
Okay. So basically, stars with healing powers are falling from the sky. And fourth grader Julia is trying to catch a star to save her grandmother's life. Her grandmother is sick with the invisibility illness, and eventually she's going to completely disappear. Julia doesn't want that to happen, so if she catches a star, her wish will come true, and hopefully she can save her grandma's life.
That's spectacular. Oh my gosh. This invisibility illness, this is kind of cool.
Yes.
I like that it's specific and yet not simultaneously. When I started reading the book, I thought, invisibility, is that Alzheimer's? Could it be something like Alzheimer's? Because people with Alzheimer's it kind of has that feel of disappearing. Were you thinking of that, or were you just trying to find an illness fourth graders could connect with?
That's interesting. I think everybody will bring to it what they want to bring to it. I guess I did want to think of something different and unusual. And I wanted this to be sort of a magical story. So I just, I didn't want anything to get too detailed with it. And I just thought the idea of actually disappearing. We don't know what happens after death.
Right.
So it's sort of symbolic, I suppose,
Well, and the other thing, too, is that I know as my grandfather started to age and he started having health problems, it did kind of feel like he was disappearing because I got to see him less frequently.
Yes.
Was that kind of the idea you were going for?
Yes. And my grandmother, as she got older, was sort of the same. She didn't have that illness, but there would be good days, where she'd be very lucid, and other days not so much. And you're right, it is a little bit like that. And a lot of illnesses, I think, can be like that. It takes a part of you.
Sure. Anything physical, mental illness especially, we see people tend to go away in pieces rather than all at once.
Yes.
It's not the drama of a plane crash or a train accident, right? It's a little bit at a time, and it becomes more and more uncomfortable over time.
And there's that idea you want to hold on to them, and how can you hold on to them, and how much can you hold on to them?
Absolutely. Yeah. Tell me more about your fourth grade character.
Okay.
Where was the inspiration that you got? Where did she come from, and how did you kind of formulate her?
Well, she's very spunky, and she's a kickboxer. She's not your typical girl, if there's such a thing. I wanted her to be a strong female character. I like reading about them, and that's what I wanted for her. She likes, fishing and catching turtles and things. And honestly, I don't know if this is true, but I think she kind of came from like a younger, spunkier version of myself.
Okay.
I don't feel like that's necessarily me now. There's parts of me that are still like that now, but when I was really little, I used to wear a red baseball cap backwards, and I wanted to drive a motorcycle and do all these crazy things, which made my mom
boy things.
Very nervous. I used to watch Mr. T, and I played a lot of sports and things like that, and so I kind of think she comes from that part of my personality.
Sure.
Yeah, and so I just kind of ran with that. And again, I want girls to feel like that's okay, like you can be like that, and it's awesome. We can all go on adventures. So.
Absolutely. I was sending frogs up into space when I was a kid.
Oh my goodness, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It goes along with the story.
Yeah, it was crazy. So let's talk about your process a little bit before we get into some other questions I have about the story. do you, age-old question, Potter, Planter,
I know.
right?
I
Do
know.
you plot? Do you pants? Do you hybrid?
So-
How do you do that?
I have to confess, in the beginning, I was a pantser.
Okay.
Which means, you go by the seat of your
And
pants.
you came to the dark side, didn't you?
I know, because you are a plotter, right? I think
Oh,
I saw
Die
that.
Hard, yeah.
Okay. So, and I think I could get away with it because I wrote a lot of journey stories, and they have an inherent structure to them. You go on this journey and you come back changed or whatever.
Right.
And so I think that there still is a plot structure there, and it's a known structure. So I think that I could just sort of follow that.
Joseph Campbell would be proud.
Right, yes, love him. Actually, love him. But what I realized is, in doing that, there's a lot of work you have to do afterwards, revising. I think there's a lot more revising you have to do, and sometimes you kind of have to gut
With
the whole
plotting
thing.
or with pantsing?
Pantsing.
Okay,
Because
yeah,
you have to,
yeah.
because you've gone through it, and
'Cause
you're
you
like,
miss
oh,
connections.
wait. Yeah, lots of connections are missing, plot holes, and you have to, and you can still connect those dots. It still can be done.
Sure.
But again, there's just a lot more work after. And then when I decided, like with the next one, that I was going to have plot cards. I still don't do like that traditional outline because it's just like, it makes me think of school, A, B, C, D. I can't do that.
Yeah.
But the plot cards are really nice because I learned, because you can move them around, you can shift them. And I started doing those like, the character lists and the, just what they call kind of like a story Bible.
Right, right.
So, and doing all that, like really more in depth, I would say.
So let me ask you, are you a physical writer or are you a digital writer? Do you have software you work with? You're talking about plot cards. Do you work with something like Scrivener or do you do everything physically?
Not yet. I've heard people using it and I've watched some webinars about it, but still, no, I just just have my Word documents.
Paper
and
3x5 cards?
Yep.
That's
the actual
awesome.
card. But then you can physically, I don't know how the software works, but it's just
Right,
nice.
yeah.
I'm a really tactile person, so to be
Okay.
able to just shuffle through those, I think there's something.
And you can tack them on the wall.
Yeah, because I'm an
Tape 'em to
artist
your
as
mirror.
well, and with art, I like to be able to, get into it too, and so there's something nice about that. But then you have to keep track of them, make sure you don't lose them. At one point, they like all spilled, and I was like, oh no, they're out of order, and then
Yeah.
I put them back together. But
So do you do the whole numbering thing or do you color code or how do you put them together?
I guess I have them in order by chapter. I think I guess with the next story I wrote, I did have a number of chapters, and I kind of decided even how many chapters I was going to have. I didn't know if that was going to work or not, but I was like, let's give it a try. I wasn't sure if that was too much structure. But it helped, and then you can still insert another chapter or take one out.
Exactly, right.
But
Yeah.
so in a sense, I couldn't lose track because I had each chapter.
Right. I
so.
work in a similar fashion except I do it digitally.
Okay.
I have software that I work with and I put chapter heads and then I put plot points under each chapter
Okay,
head. But the nice thing
yes.
about doing it digitally is I can pick them up and drop and drag them if I decide to change the order.
Okay, that's
So
great.
I can move them around.
You don't lose
So
them.
that's super helpful.
Yeah. Do you use Scrivener or?
I tried using Scrivener, but
Okay.
I don't have a visual brain.
Okay.
I have a word brain.
Yes.
So I got a really cool program called Power Structure.
Okay.
And it has everything it's not 1, 2, 3, ABC kind of outlines,
Okay.
but they're very text-based rather than visually based.
Okay.
And that process works for me. The great
Okay.
thing I love about this industry is that no one process works the same for everybody.
Right. Yes.
You take a little bit from here and a little bit
Yes.
from there, and however you squeeze it together is how your story ends up getting written.
Yep.
Right.
And they all come together somehow.
Somehow we don't know how that happens.
It's a little bit magical. Even I feel like when it's done, like, did I really do this? How did it all come together? But it does,
Yeah, I was talking with another author earlier, and she says she just listens to the voices.
Oh, okay.
I have voices I listen to too. She spends more time in the background, literally taking dictation. I actually have conversations where I say, no, we're going to negotiate this.
With your characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's funny.
Absolutely.
You almost have to take them hostage or something.
Yeah.
You're going to do what I say. Is it more you're telling them what to do or they're telling you?
Oh, no, they tell me.
Okay.
Like one time I was sitting with my writers group at Panera and working on a story, and the main character abdicated and said, I'm not going to be the main character anymore. Find another lackey. And it hit me so strongly that I literally stood up in the middle of the restaurant and screamed, no! Everybody else in the restaurant was looking at me like I had three heads, and my writing group people sitting at the table with me looked at me and said, okay, so what just happened? They all understood.
Right.
So it was okay.
Yes, writers understand. Yeah. And the voices are okay when you're a writer, you know.
Exactly. It's okay to be slightly schizophrenic.
Yes. Yeah, you kind of have to be.
I think it's a requirement.
As long as you can keep track of who's who and what's what, then.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a requirement, though. You know. So tell me about the idea, where you got the idea of incorporating this real world idea with facing something as important as life and death. Because that's hard for little kids. What gave you the idea that you could incorporate magic into it? And then a follow-up question to that would be, once you decided it was going to be magic, how did you decide on stars?
Okay, it's a lot of questions.
Yeah, I know. I used to be a newspaper reporter, so there you go.
Me too. So I tend to believe there actually is magic in the world. That's debatable, I suppose, but I like to believe that there is a thread of magic on whatever level, in whatever way you want to conceive that. And so I don't know if I could write a story without a thread of magic in it. I don't, even if it was to be a realistic story, I feel like there'd probably be some thread in there. That's why I really like magical realism. And I feel like it sort of lends a little bit to that, with maybe a little bit more of a fairy tale quality. And I think fantasy in general provides a way to help answer those hard questions without having to be really straightforward about it. Again, you can have this adventure and you can do these fantastical things, but then there's still this thread of truth that always runs through. You just can't really escape that, I think, even with fantasy, and it just provides a vehicle, really, I think, to talk about those difficult things. And I think for kids, kids like adventure and they like fantasy, so it is a way to, broach those difficult topics, but while having fun and, going on an adventure, basically. And then the stars. I always liked stars growing up. The moon and stars, all of that, the night sky, looking up at stars, wishing on stars. It was just my thing. You were talking earlier about everybody has their thing.
Everybody has a thing, yeah.
And that was my thing. In fact, originally, before I wanted to be an author, I wanted to be an astronaut.
Awesome.
Yes. I was really into it. Until I found out that it involved a lot of spinning, being upside down and being. So
this roller coaster isn't your thing.
No, I can't do those. I can do the
equilibrium imbalance is not your thing.
No, I can't. I can do the big hill, but if there's any spinning involved, it's not good.
Yeah.
So that crushed that dream, basically.
I had a similar thing. I was going to be a veterinarian when I was a kid, and then I found out how much math was required.
Oh, really? There's math? I don't want any math involved either.
Yeah, and that's kind of when I said, math, I can't, I can barely count, let alone do computations in my head to save an animal.
Yes.
So I'm going to have puppies, and then I'll learn to do something else.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah. But I was having the space program when I was a kid as well.
It's so cool.
Space station.
Yes.
When they first came out with the shuttle, I was completely bonkers over the whole. So I get it.
It's just a neat thing. I mean, who doesn't kind of wonder a little bit about stars? What's out there?
Absolutely.
Are there aliens? And what happened was I started thinking about stars. Like, what are they made of? What can they do? And I was asking these questions, these like what if questions, which is a great way to figure out your story.
Absolutely.
Is to ask questions. And I was thinking, like, what if, we're looking at stars, what if they're also looking back at us? And what if they know something about us or our future that we don't know? And then, of course, the big question, what if they have the power to heal? So, and that's
pretty
kind of
awesome.
where it took off,
That's pretty awesome. Gotta admit, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What made you decide on a middle grade book for your first foray into this insanity we call a life?
Well, I've actually tried a lot of different ones. I'm into writing picture books as well. The one that I just finished that I'm working on right now is actually a YA. But I think my heart is in middle grade. And I think the reason is because I really enjoyed that time growing up. Like 4th through 6th grade was a fun time for me. I feel like when you get into the teen years, it's really angsty and the books get really angsty.
Super awkward.
It's important. Yeah. It's important time, but like I just don't want to get into that. I like the time where like you're still going on those adventures. You don't have too much homework yet. You have independence, but there's still a lot of fun, right? And so that was just a time that I enjoyed, and so it was fitting, I think. It just felt right. You know how you just find where your voice comes, and I felt like, at least for this first book, that's where it was.
That's fabulous. Have you had the privilege yet to take your books into schools and talk with youngsters?
Yes. I'm just starting that. Yep.
What's their response been like?
They're liking it. You know what? I actually got to do a couple book clubs at libraries.
Cool.
And like even running them and hearing their feedback is just the best because they're very candid. And they don't hold back. No, they'll be very frank with you, and tell you exactly what you think. And I mean, usually it's all positive because they're just excited about it and they're seeing an author, but it's useful. I mean, I was actually taking notes like, tell me what you liked. Tell me if any of it was boring. Like, tell me, what you found suspenseful. And I think that's useful for writing the next book. I mean, it's great to hear what adults think, and adults can review your book all day long, but it's really great to hear
from your audience.
Yeah, that's the audience. Those are your readers.
Yep.
So
when I do festivals, I have a children's fairy tale that I wrote. And when I do festivals, I tell the kids when they buy the book, it's, okay, with your mom and dad's permission, go online and send me a note. Oh. Tell me what you thought about the book. I don't care if it's good, bad, or indifferent, but the way that I can make the next book better is if you tell me the truth about what you thought of this one. If you think I tanked at it, tell me I tanked at it and I won't write any more children's books. So it sounds like you're getting the same type of feedback.
Yeah. It was one child even drew me a picture of the cover. I want to get more of those. I'm going to try to ask kids to send me those because it was just so great to see her sort of visualizing it and thinking about it,
Or to draw pictures from within the story. Here's a scene that, pick a scene that really resonated with you or a scene that stood out for you and draw me a picture of what that looks like.
Because that could be very cool. Telling too. You could see what part meant something to them,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's like art therapy almost.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of that actually. I think it works.
You said earlier you're an artist and you're working on a picture book?
So I'm dabbling in art too. I'm mostly self-taught, so I feel like and it's a whole different thing. It's one thing to draw from things you see and to draw like a still life or landscape, and another thing to illustrate. There's a lot more that you have to do.
Yeah,
you have to sort of tell a second story with the pictures.
Right.
So there's a lot to learn with that. So I'm still kind of in the learning phase of that. And I realized, I think it's typical for a lot of artists where you can do more than one thing.
Right.
And so I was doing, a lot of different things, and I was like, okay, I can be okay at all of these things, or I can, see one to the end, and then, so that's why I went with.
I can be mediocre at 3 different things, or I can be a really good writer.
Exactly. So, but I'm still developing it, and I would like to do that, to do a picture book and write it and illustrate it. As well, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Have you thought about the idea of doing a book for grown-ups? I hate saying adult book because everybody goes in a different direction when you say adult fiction. But have you thought about doing something for more mature readers, for grown-up readers?
That's a good question. I haven't really. Not really, actually. I think I've actually always wanted to be a children's writer. I'm not sure where that calling came from, but No, I think I shouldn't say never. I think that's possible that, maybe there'll be a topic that I feel is more for adults, and maybe in that case I might want to, or if there's something that I need to go really in depth with a lot of backstory. They often tell you not to write a lot of backstory for kids because they just don't want to hear it, even though it's necessary.
Who's they? What do they know?
But at the same token, like saying something that's like too grown up for kids, is that really true? Because I do think it's like we're talking about difficult subjects. If you handle them in a certain way, kids can handle more than we think they can.
Oh, absolutely.
And they realize and understand. I have a toddler at home, and I know she understands more than she can even communicate to me.
Sure, without question. Yeah.
So to shield them from these things that they're often going to experience anyway, I think is a disservice, So, in that case, I don't know. It's going to be children's books for me.
Maybe one day you'll write a bridge book so that adults can understand kids better.
Oh, there you go. Maybe. Or maybe I'll continue the series on until the character's an adult. I mean, Harry Potter goes almost into adulthood.
Yeah, isn't that craziness?
They could. I mean, she could do that. I wouldn't mind. I'd like to see them as adults. What are they doing now?
Yeah. It was funny that you bring up Harry Potter because I was just thinking about that this morning. So I wonder if when they signed Daniel Radcliffe when he was 10, if he also signed a contract to do all of them. Oh. So they had the same, because the same characters actually stayed with the series the whole time. Yes. So it makes me wonder, what was the business end of that? Did they lock these kids in for like the next 15 years of their lives?
Right. And hopefully their parents were okay with that. Maybe they were like, great, we'll have that income.
That'll be fabulous. So tell me, was the grandmother in this story based on your grandmother, or did you find pieces of the grandmother's character that came from other sources?
I think stories always come from a variety of sources, but certainly my grandmother was a part of this story. And so she was a big part of my life. She used to come over every Sunday and have dinner with us, and she taught me to play the piano, which is really
cool.
a special thing.
Yeah.
And there was these life lessons built in that weren't just about, learning how to play the piano. She and her brother, she told me the story about how they were playing duet together, and they forgot the rest of the song. But instead of giving up, they could have just ended right there. They played the part they knew over again, which is kind of
that works.
Good idea, right? Yeah. And until they had finished, their time frame or whatever. And that really taught me the idea of perseverance.
Sure.
Like things get tough, they don't go your way, but you keep going, and that really comes out in the story, I feel, because Julia encounters all these struggles trying to get the star, and it doesn't go her way, and she keeps trying. And I think that's, an important concept. Things get tough, but you try to keep going.
Sure.
And also, my grandmother at one point became very ill. So that's the, sort of harder part that I was dealing with, and it was sort of cathartic to write about that in the story. It was difficult too. I mean, it made me both feel better, but it made it hard to write about.
Yeah. Excuse me. I don't know who said it, but somebody in the literary world said, no emotion in the author, no emotion in the reader. And I think that's really a true statement, because if your work doesn't move you, how are you going to expect it to move somebody else? True. If your work doesn't capture somebody, how are they going to be, if it doesn't capture you, if you're not interested, how are they going to be interested in reading your work?
That's true. And I have to admit that there were parts that I sort of shied away from at first and was sort of encouraged to explore a little bit more, and I finally did it. and I'm happy with that result, and I'm glad I had it go that way, but I think I was a little scared to be that honest.
So we've just got like 3 minutes left.
Okay.
And I don't get to ask this question of authors very often, but I feel like you might be receptive to it.
Okay.
So there's a big debate about to pseudonym or not to pseudonym.
Oh, right.
Okay. So I know that you use an author name. We're not going to talk about what your real life name is because part of the reason people use pseudonyms is to protect themselves, right? Protect their privacy. What made you decide? Was it just a privacy issue, or were there other factors involved? And you don't have to get too detailed about it, but were there other factors involved that made you decide on a pen name?
Yeah, there was a few reasons, and one of them is that, well, I've been told that I look young, or that I have a youthful exuberance. So
I can attest to that. That's true. That's true.
And I also feel like I'm sort of young at heart. So using a kid just seemed sort of fitting in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And my maiden name actually is Kidd, Kidd.
Okay.
So I kind of just thought, I think I'm meant to be a children's writer. I have this name. How can I not use it? And so I kind of went with it. And then the last piece of it is just that I like the idea of having kids be able to connect to me and to my writing, and to feel like if they see this book and maybe think a kid wrote it, and then think maybe they could write one too. So I just want to sort of encourage that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the first time. I've asked this question of a couple of people. That's the first time I've ever heard somebody say that they used a pseudonym for an altruistic reason. So that encourages me. I now have hope for humanity. Thank you for that.
I'm glad there's a little bit of hope left in humanity with everything.
That's spectacular. So are you thinking about writing another story with these characters? And if so, when do you think it'll be out?
I thought the way it ends, which I'm not going to reveal, I thought maybe it was a finished piece, but I've had some young kids mention that they want to see more about the constellations and the characters. So now I'm starting to think maybe, but it's that story has not been, it's still in there percolating.
Right.
So I couldn't say when an end date for that story will be yet, but and my niece actually said she wanted a whole story about the dog, Petey. She liked him so much.
That's great.
So maybe there'll be a whole, story about the dog.
That's awesome.
I don't know.
A spin-off dog book.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming out today.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed having you in the studio.
Fun.
I'm not finished reading the book yet. I'm super inspired to finish it, and I know some young people that I think would really enjoy it.
Oh,
so
good. I'm so glad.
Thank you so much for coming
it was
in.
Wonderful.
And
it was fun.
let me know when the next book gets done, and we'll have you back. Okay.
Great. Wonderful.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.